What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. You know, every time there's like a rumored Nintendo Direct that's out there, it always gets announced like right after Newswave goes up, doesn't it? Well, since there is one rumored for this week, I figure today and tomorrow if I might be able to get ahead of it, right? So check back later on, I guess, for some information about the Nintendo Direct that maybe was announced today. Anyway, we do have some other stuff to go over, of course. We have to talk a bit about a problem that the Switch is actually running into right now online when it comes to the pricing, because the Switch itself, not the Lite, is becoming pretty hard to find, and yes, people are taking advantage of that, of course. Also, Sony decided to double down on the PlayStation 5's launch window, which is something we weren't really sure how that would go down, and Half-Life Alyx came out, and it looks like Valve has done it again. Seriously, you're going to want to see some of the review scores and the things going on for Half-Life Alyx. As always, guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're brand new here, hit that red subscribe button down below. And we're going to start today with GameStop and pre-orders. It's something I had not considered at the time when we were going over all of the stuff that was going on with GameStop, their employees, and of course the current conditions in the world right now. I hadn't really thought about people who have pre-ordered, considering the stores are closed, kind of. You know, they can still open the door and kind of pass the bag to you through like a crack in the door, essentially. And you have to do a lot of the stuff online to then pick up in store. Something I hadn't considered is, how do you kind of pick up a pre-order if it was done in store, of course? You're not having it shipped to you. Well, that's something that's been brought up by quite a few people. In fact, CAG even posted that GameStop has no way to close those out, apparently, which seems strange to me because I figure you could just call them and they would just go through the computer and kind of clear it out and get you your game. I bring this up specifically because Final Fantasy VII Remake, of course, is fast approaching, and if you're like me, you're ridiculously excited to play this thing, especially after that demo. It really just reinforced what I was hoping for, which is a complete reimagining, it seems anyway, of Final Fantasy VII. So keep that in mind. You might even want to call ahead, just in case they're still in this current situation, how they can figure that out, or at least make them aware that even they might not even be aware that they can't close out pre-order transactions. Something just to call and double check if you have a significant amount of credit on that game or a game coming up. Also, I've been very curious about the Animal Crossing sales numbers, because all over the internet right now, on Twitter, YouTube, I see people playing this game constantly. It's almost like everybody bought the thing, right? So naturally, when we saw the UK sales charts come out and it says that it's like the best Switch launch ever. Okay, that's pretty interesting. And now we're seeing Geo Corporation in Japan say the same thing. This is the biggest Switch launch they've ever had. That includes versus Pokemon or even Smash Bros. Ultimate. Both of those were monsters in terms of sales numbers. Even Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which I think more or less built up to where it is now just over time. It was a launch. It was right there at launch, like a month after or whatnot. So that's kind of had the entire Switch's lifespan to get to where it is, whereas the other ones really came out of the gate recently and just kept rolling. So it seems like, yes, Animal Crossing New Horizons is going to have some pretty big sales numbers, and we should find out at least some hard numbers tomorrow when they come out of Famitsu, although I am curious how the physical sales in Japan will be affected by what's going on right now, and it seems like Geo Corporation at least says it didn't affect them too much, as they were able to sell out completely. Oh, and while most of us have kind of moved on, or even in some instances forgotten about Google Stadia, it seems like they're still trying to stick around a bit, and they're doing stuff now they should have done a while ago, which includes signing exclusivity deals for games on their platform to maybe entice people to sign up. The most recent one is a partnership with Splash Damage, who I remember heavily for Brink, but they've also done things like run support for Master Chief Collection and done some work with Gears of War. It looks like Google Stadia is going to fund a game from them that is exclusive to that platform. And what I hope they end up doing is what they have kind of sold everyone on, which is that because they're using specifically Stadia's platform where you can stack servers and do all this crazy stuff that they say local machines cannot do, I hope they take advantage of that so they can actually show off this platform, because all we really see from Stadia is, I guess, the same game, but at times running worse or just having worse picture quality even than the current consoles. What happens when the PlayStation 5 and the Series X come out? Well, we'll see about that, but hopefully this is the start to what they should have been doing like years ago, which is bring in studios, fund their projects, and get some exclusive games on your platform. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start with the Switch and its interesting position right now in gaming. Of course, it sells really well, and we see these games like Animal Crossing come out and smash sales records, it seems. Smash Ultimate, of course, did the same thing, and then here comes Pokemon doing the same thing. So you figure you want to keep a nice stock of the Switch system in stores all around the world, but we have an issue with manufacturing currently, and it does seem to be hitting the Switch pretty hard. Now, we've looked at the Famitsu sales charts here and there as we've gone along if there's been anything interesting on there, but over the last month or so in Japan, I have pointed out that the base Switch itself, of course the one that is a hybrid, not necessarily the Switch Lite, which is not, has been selling less and less as we've gone along. It seems like the Switch Lite, at least for now, has not had the same supply constraints that the current Switch has, and many people are reporting that it's pretty much impossible to find a Switch in stock at your local retail store. I've checked a couple places, and yeah, they're just gone, like the Walmarts or the Targets. I haven't checked recently because a lot of people were supposed to be staying inside, but the last time I checked, which was a couple days ago when I bought some groceries, no Switch at all. Nothing. Not even the Lite, actually. There were some 3DSs there, so, you know, there's that, although 2DS XL, but no Switch system. So what is happening now? Take a guess, because of course, the world of online commerce says that people will mark up the Switch heavily, and that is indeed happening. And to go beyond that, people are still buying it. I think it has to do with Animal Crossing. Now, look, we expect at this point limited edition systems that come out, like Animal Crossing, to show up online and be, well, price gouged. We expect that at this point, right? If you haven't pre-ordered and you didn't get one, you're probably going to pay a little extra just to find it down the road, unless for some reason they decide to make more of them and put them out. Happens sometimes, but not often. And then, of course, we now see the regular Switch. If you're going to pay this kind of money, get a new Switch. I don't recommend it because I do think we will see them show back up in stores. Or consider this, if you're seeing a $500 Switch, and I'm not kidding, if you go on eBay right now and search, you'll find them for about $500. If you go on Amazon, you'll find it for about the same amount, right around $500 for a brand new Switch. Consider, for $200 for a Switch Lite, which you might be able to find, I saw them online for still same regular $200 pricing. You could buy that, and then when the regular Switches come in stock, you could then buy a regular Switch for the price of what people are now charging currently. It is, yeah, it's a little out there. I mean, we see this all the time, and it's not uncommon necessarily as demand goes up and supply goes down. Trust me, we've seen it, of course, with toilet paper, hand sanitizer, all kinds of stuff right now. It's just interesting that the Switch is in this position. With a game like Animal Crossing coming out, or has now come out, and just a lack of Switch systems. Nintendo warned us that this was going to happen. It's just a shame it's happening right now, where people are really looking for the system, and they almost feel like they have no choice but to buy the $500 version of it just because people say it's worth that much online. Now, what I will say is I do think Nintendo will eventually be able to get more stock out. And hey, look at it this way. We don't really know what else is coming out. At this point, Animal Crossing was the last dated Switch title. We, of course, know that, you know, games like Xenoblade, No More Heroes, those are coming, Bravely Default 2. But right now, this year looks pretty wide open, so maybe it's worth waiting on the regular Switch and buying a Switch Lite now if you just want to play some Animal Crossing. Although, keep in mind, Animal Crossing is stuck on that Switch as well, so it's tough. Maybe find them secondhand. Maybe you can find one on Craigslist or something. I don't know. It really is tough right now with the Switch, and it's a shame that people are, of course, taking advantage of this situation. It's expected at this point. It is a shame, though, to see this happen. Next up, let's talk about the PlayStation 5. We know some stuff about the PS5 right now. We have an idea of the power, as Mark Cerny decided to take about 52 minutes to explain that, along with audio and all this other stuff, right? But the one thing that people have been curious, specifically because of the current conditions right now in the world, what would happen with the PlayStation 5 when it comes to its launch window? Would it fall out of 2020, as that is something that people have been speculating on, if these systems will even come out, and even if they do, is anyone really going to rush to buy a $500 or even $600 system if a lot of people are still recovering at that time? Now, it is around holiday, of course, so that's typically when consumers spend a lot of money either way. They'll use credit cards, whatever. So I think they would still sell as long as they made their 2020 debut in the holiday, but the question is pricing and all of that as well. It looks like Sony decided to take to their website. They did update it, so that got people pretty excited, because does that mean that the PlayStation 5 is going to get some kind of reveal soonish or something? Hard to say, but they did at least double down on the idea of it coming out this holiday. Now you can see the website right here that just says PlayStation 5 is coming. So, okay, they've updated it somewhat, I guess. It still has the area where you kind of sign up for updates and all of that, but still, we're going into April now without any real information outside of the system's 10.28 teraflops at the max. The biggest thing the issue I have is we don't even know what it looks like. We don't know the features of the controller or anything that might separate it from the Series X outside of their interesting focus on audio, which could be pretty cool, right? And of course, their faster SSD. That's like the biggest stuff that separates it from the Series X, but I feel like Sony has some more stuff kind of in the background, kind of hidden a bit right now that they're ready to reveal, and I'm pretty interested to see that. And then, of course, the games. So here's hoping that maybe they're updating and playing around their website to get ready for more information and a reveal, but at least for now, they're still pretty confident with that holiday 2020 release. Next up, let's talk about Half-Life Alyx, which is a game from Valve. That's surprising, right? We thought Valve for a while had kind of fallen out of making these big budget style games, and ones that would of course push the genre forward with whatever platform it shows up on. Half-Life 1 comes out, that really pushed, I thought, the first person shooter kind of mixed with like a narrative, cinematic narrative forward. It was really, really interesting. Of course, Half-Life 2 comes out, and we get the gravity gun, and that was impressive. And here we are now with Half-Life Alyx, and it appears to be pushing the VR genre forward and sets a new bar for quality in these games. It's a 15-hour game in VR, and it takes advantage of quite a bit of stuff that you haven't seen before. It's been mentioned in a lot of these reviews that your hands that you have in the game are not just like, don't just clip through everything. Anything you touch with your hands will be affected in the game, which is pretty interesting to see. Visually, it looks great, and if you go over to Metacritic, it right now has a 93, which is very, very good for a VR game in general. I think a lot of that just has to do with, of course, it's Half-Life. People are excited to be in the world of Half-Life, but it seems that Valve has done a lot to make this a high-quality game in the VR space. 25 positive reviews at this time from different outlets, which of course include IGN, VGC, VG247, GamesBeat, Game Informer, and so on, and 25 and no negative or even mixed reviews. It sounds weird to say this. It's a VR game, and I get it. People are going to say, oh, it's a VR game. Not interested. That's fine. You might see this in like the Game of the Year category. It's very possible. My only thing with that is there are going to be a lot of people who do not play it because it's just a VR game. I'd be curious if they would think about adapting it just for people who would like to play through the game and the story, and you would lose a lot of the immersion that they have set up here. If they'd be curious about moving it over so that you can at least play it without a VR headset, as I think there's a lot of people who are interested. It's selling well on Steam right now, though, and that's what Valve was trying to do. They wanted to sell indexes, and they made a whole Half-Life game in order to do that. The good news is, though, if you have a Vive or an Oculus Rift, you should still be able to play the game anyway. So you don't necessarily need an index, but I guess Valve had that set up as like the best overall experience. But if you have like a Rift S that you got recently, or you already have an HTC Vive, you should be able to pick it up and try it out. But hey, everything we're seeing here, another really good game in 2020. It's been a pretty good couple of weeks in gaming for reviews on different games, right? Doom Eternal did pretty well, Animal Crossing, and that's just in the last 4 or 5 days. So yeah, it's been pretty good. Ori, and then we had Dreams, not a bad start, and then we still have Final Fantasy, Cyberpunk, and who knows what else is coming up later this year. And in our last bit of news, I want to point to a really, really cool breakthrough that's happened in the PlayStation 3 emulator space. And I point to this because we have not heard anything about backwards compatibility for the PlayStation 5 outside of PS4 games. Now they've said the vast majority of PS4 games will work with the PS5, but they've only tested about 100 that can be used with their quote-unquote boost mode, I guess, that will make it run better. A lot of us would like to see PS3 get backwards compatible, but a lot of people say it's just not possible. unless you download a certain emulator, it seems, on PC. This was posted up. And get ready for this one, because this is some impressive stuff. This is RPCS3. I always mess that up. RPCS3. And it is an emulator that I have been following for a while. And recently they figured out how to use something called VBlank, which is a little slider that will allow you to up the frame rate, or at least the cap for your frame rate in these games. They showed off Skate 3, for example, over 100 frames per second, which is insane. But even games that cut that in half and are trying to stick at 30 frames per second can have it pushed to 60. They showed Ni no Kuni, they showed Mod Nation Racers, several games that would benefit from that 60 frames per second roof. And even Wipeout benefits from over 100 frames per second. There's some really cool examples in there I would check out. But you know what this makes me want? It makes me want Sony to really look at backwards compatible on the PlayStation 3 and make it somewhat of a focus for the PS5. And I hope there is this crazy reveal that it's like, oh, it's backwards compatible with everything. Probably won't be, but it's looking at this, seeing a group be able to put together an emulator like this. I think it started with one person, and they've kind of had more and more people help them throughout, because it is open source. It really makes me somewhat disappointed in what the PS5 is offering currently, because I'm seeing the possibilities here. And then imagine if Sony got on it, right, with the amount of, I guess, just resources they have to make something like this happen. And it's just, man, it's a missed opportunity. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Crow saying, yeah, I actually picked up Animal Crossing from GameStop last night with the door meeting thing. Lady told me to meet her next to the door and call her. I was watching her in the store. I called her and she hung up the phone, put a raincoat on, put a mask on, put hand sanitizer on and gloves on, went to another part, and there were lines of games in little baggies, and she searched for mine. Then she poked her head out the door and said, let me see some ID. I gave her it, and then she just handed me the game bundled in a paper baggie and said, enjoy your game, and closes the door. That seems like a lot to go through to get a game. Look, GameStop is doing anything they can to stay open, but it does make me question, like, are you really making enough money to stay open? To pay? I guess you say there's a bunch of baggies lined up, but that just seems weird, doesn't it? Because part of it is your customer experience. That seems like a terrible customer experience, but hey, I mean, you got your game on time, right? When you wanted it, you went and just picked it up. You didn't have to walk in the door and, I guess, browse and touch stuff. That's what they're trying to get around, right? It's just so strange to go that far. It still shows some of the desperation of GameStop, but I guess at least it's not a bunch of people walking around a confined space at this point. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it is Half-Life Alyx and those review scores. Did you pick it up? Let me know about that one down below. And then also, what about the Switch and kind of its inflated pricing? And then, of course, the PlayStation 5 and its holiday release. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.